Good Vach. So it's Matzah Shabbos Hagadol, a week to Pesach, and we'll review the basic halachas that are practical. Thank Hashem, we learned a lot of different halachas and things that are not so practical, just for the knowledge of Torah. And tonight and this week we will be doing the practical halachas, and then we'll look at the Haggadah and some of the commentaries. Okay, we will start with chapter 111, which we'll skip the introduction. There are 17 paragraphs in chapter 111. The first one will speak about the time for searching the chametz, prohibitions once the time arrives. Number 2 is the candle. Number 3 is where to search to clean first. Number 4, a cowshed or a chicken coop. Number 5, crevices, cracks, and pockets. Number 6, rooms that are sold to the non-Jew. Number 7, the blessing. Number 8, putting out pieces of chametz, the 10 pieces. Number 9, leftover chametz, what's done with it the night of the searching. 10 and 11 speaks about the nullification, the bittul. 12 and 13, making a storeroom before Pesach. 14, stockpiling grain in a pit. Number 15, feeding produce to chickens before Pesach. Number 16, what if somebody departs on a journey before Pesach? Number 17, chametz, God forbid that it's found on Pesach itself. We will start with 1. On the night before Erev Pesach, which this year is actually Thursday night, the night before that, because Shabbos is actually Erev Pesach. That's the night that begins the 14th of Nisan, the night before the Seder night. We search for the chametz. It's called B'dikas chametz. One is required to perform the search immediately at the beginning of the night. Okay, so one should begin immediately following Tzeisa Kechavim, which is nightfall, while the final traces of daylight are still apparent, in order that one should not be lax or forget to fulfill his obligation. This is in Mishnah 41:1. One who normally recites the Ma'ariv prayer at nightfall with the congregation should do so first and perform the search afterward. For the halacha regarding one who normally recites Ma'ariv without a minyan, see over there in Mishnah Berurah 431 and Sharatzin 11. The search may not be performed before nightfall. One who performed the search on the day of the 13th of Nisan by the light of a candle, that is, he did not wait for nightfall before performing the search, must repeat the search at night without a bracha, without the blessing. However, one who performed the search on the night of the 13th rather than on the night of the 14th during a normal year by the light of a candle need not perform the search again on the night of the 14th, provided that he was very careful not to bring chametz into that area after the search. Nevertheless, there are those authorities who discourage searching one's entire house before the night of the 14th, since one would then lose the opportunity to perform the search with the appropriate blessing. In other words, the appropriate blessing and the appropriate way of doing it is the way the sages of the Talmud told us to do, and that's why we have a problem if it's done the night before. Okay. It is prohibited to begin eating or to do any work 1/2 hour before nightfall. What exactly does that mean? That is, to eat more than an egg's volume of bread. This is an amount of bread that equals approximately 2 ounces. However, an egg's volume of bread or even a large amount of fruit is permitted. That amount itself is permitted. Nevertheless, once the time for the b'dika has arrived, one should avoid delaying the mitzvah even by eating fruit. Just do it then. This is because one may get involved in his meal or work and forget to perform the bedikah, the searching. If one began working or reading before the time, he must stop at Tzeiser Kechavim at nightfall. That's the Ramon 431 with Mishnah Berurah. One must even interrupt the study of Torah when the time for B'dikas Chametz, the searching of the Chametz, arrives, and may certainly not begin to study Torah at that time. It is even questionable whether one may begin studying Torah within a half hour before the nightfall, before the time. Nevertheless, it is certainly permitted to study until the time of B'dikas Chametz if one asks someone else who is not studying to remind him to perform the search at the proper time. Or in other cases, if a group of people are studying together that do not involve in-depth analysis of the subject matter, that's how Mishnah Berurah says in 431. So it is permitted to begin eating or do any work a half hour before nightfall. Also, all the things that are prohibited to do before the davening of mincha are prohibited now also. That's how the Rav Shulchan Aruch says over here. We will go to 2, paragraph 2. The search may be formed only by the light of a single wax candle. Braided candles, like a Havdalah, right, with multiple wicks, may not be used, because a braided candle is considered a torch. Excuse me. A torch may not be used for the search, since it is impossible to reach the cracks and crevices with it. Furthermore, the concern exists that one may not perform the search properly out of fear of setting his house on fire. Mishnah Berurah 433. Many authorities permit and even recommend using a flashlight for the bedikah, interestingly enough. Nevertheless, in keeping with the tradition, the minhag is, like we said, this is how Chazal taught us, and this is how we do it. Nevertheless, in keeping with the tradition, there are those who use a candle when reciting the blessing and for part of the bedikah. Rabbi Feinstein says that you don't have to turn off the light in the room for the search, and it is actually preferable to leave them on. This is how Rabbi Ada quotes him in Halachas of Pesach, page 86, note 84. So a braided candle is no good. Now, in a time of pressing need, an emergency, when one does not have a wax candle, you may search with a candle of tallow. Initially, one should not use a candle of tallow, which is not kosher, out of the concern that due to the fear that the tallow will drip on his eating utensils, causing them in turn to become non-kosher as well. So they'll be preoccupied, worried about that, and one will not conduct the search properly. It's Mishnah Berurah 433.9. Okay, we will go to 3. One searches all the rooms where there is reason to be concerned that chametz may have been brought into them, even cellars, attics, shops, and woodsheds. We'll soon get back to what all these places mean, or what the concern is. All places where there is reason to be concerned that chametz may have been brought there must be searched. Similarly, one must inspect all of the utensils used for storing chametz. Before the search, they should sweep out well all of the places that were used for chametz and cleanse them of all chametz, so that it will be easier for him to search afterward. Now, let's just see what the insinuation is, all these different types of places. So he says as follows. When he said, one searches all the rooms where there is reason to be concerned that chametz may have been brought into them, that is, not only places that are generally used for chametz, a cupboard or a place where you keep the cereals, morning cereals and lakshin and spaghetti and all these things, of course, but even places where chametz is not normally brought in, but there is a reason for concern that at some time he or a young child may have happened to bring chametz there. Attics and cellars were often used for storing fruit and other items that one would need during a meal. Even if one does not normally bring chametz into these places, they nevertheless require being searched, since the homeowner or his domestic help may have entered the room during the meal with chametz in his hand, a sandwich, let's say, in his hand, or a cookie, in order to get fruit or firewood for cooking, and inadvertently left the chametz there. That's the typical case that the Mishnah speaks about, where the butler or the help would go to the wine cellar. There was not enough wine. Wine was drunk as a regular drink those days. So maybe there wasn't enough at the table, or a guest came, so they need more wine. And meanwhile, he had his sandwich in his mouth or in his hand, or a candy or a dessert. And it might have left it there or dropped some crumbs there. Okay. Okay. Where are we holding? 15. Okay. Now he stressed, the Kitzer Shulchan Aruch stressed that all of the utensils used for storing chametz before the search, they should sweep out well all of the places that were used for chametz and cleanse them of all the chametz, so that it'll be easier for him now that he has to do the search the night before Erev Pesach. However, the cleaning does not take the place of b'dikas chametz, of searching. Even if one did it with the intent of performing the mitzvah of b'dika, it's also wrong, since a piece of chametz may have remained unnoticed in a crevice. In fact, as we have noted previously, even if one performed a b'dika, searching by day with a candle, he must perform the b'dika, the searching, again at night. Orach Chaim 433, Mishnah Berurah 433, 44, 45. Okay. We will continue to number 4. A cowshed, where grain is put for the animals to eat, and a chicken coop, where grain is put for the chickens, do not require searching for the chametz, for perhaps the grain did not become chametz at all, first of all, and even if it did become chametz, perhaps the animals ate it all and did not leave over anything. So you have 2 reasons to be lenient about it. If, however, they gave them their grain that was chametz, in which case there is only a single doubt, that is perhaps they ate it all, but you know for sure that there was chametz there, we do not rely on this assumption. In other words, that they did not leave anything over. And the couch or the chicken coop must be searched, since there was definitely chametz there. So we don't say that you could be lenient just because of one assumption that maybe it was eaten by the animal or the chickens. That was 4. Now, if the Rabbi Shulchan Aruch says that for 30 days before Pesach, a person was careful not to feed his animals chametz, then he doesn't have to search the night before with bedikas chametz. Okay. Number 5. In all of the places where the search of the chametz, the bedikas chametz, it's called, is to be performed, one must search in the crevices and in the cracks as much as possible. Also, all of the pockets in his clothing and those of his children's, into which chametz is sometimes placed. You give a kid a candy or a cookie and he puts it in his pocket. All these places require bedika searching. One should shake them out well the following day, at the time of the destruction of the chametz. Okay, the custom is to clean all the chametz from the cracks and crevices with a feather or the like. Even if one claims with certainty that he did not put chametz in these places, pockets of his clothing or his children's clothing, bedika is required. You have to check there, since one often puts chametz in his pocket without thinking. Mishnah Berurah 433, 47. Briefcases, purses, suitcases into which one sometimes puts chametz must also be checked. The same applies to one's automobile. However, the blessing of bedikas chametz, that the blessing that we make, which we'll see in paragraph 7, is not recited if one is not checking the house at that time. Yodim 119, 18. We will go to 6. Introduction to 6. One may avoid the prohibition of owning chametz on Pesach by selling his chametz to a non-Jew before that time. We spoke about me and you cannot sell it to a non-Jew. There are specific halachas how it is sold, so you need either your local Orthodox rabbi or a rabbinical court, and there are 12 or 13 different ways how it's sold. All of them must be done, and all of them are according to the scripture, not only rabbinic, but it's actual scriptural laws that require these things, the rices. So you can't just go over to a guy and say, "Yeah, I'm going to give you my chametz." That's not how it works. So it's sold to a non-Jew by the rabbi before the time that chametz becomes prohibited on the morning of the 14th of Nisan. Commonly, during the days before Pesach, one authorizes, he says himself, his rabbi to perform the sale of the chametz together with the place in which it's located, which we learned in chapter 114. We won't go through that now. However, the actual sale to the non-Jew is not performed on his behalf until Erev Pesach, the day before Pesach. This paragraph now discusses whether there is a requirement of checking chametz in the areas that was sold. Concerning, let me just turn off my phone, right? Okay, bye phone. Okay, concerning the rooms that are sold to a non-Jew, together with the chametz, since they are not sold until the following day, therefore the obligation to search them devolves upon him on the night of the 14th of Nisan when he still owns the rooms. And he is therefore obligated to search them for chametz. According to other authorities, one need not perform searching the chametz on these rooms that one intends to sell to the non-Jew, provided that the sale specifically includes all of the chametz found in the room, which is the rabbi's business. Okay. Okay, that's all the rabbi's business. Okay. 6. Okay, we're up to 7. Before one begins the search, he recites the following bracha shekeshanim mitzvaysav tzivanu al chametz. In English, that means who has sanctified us with his commandments and has commanded us regarding the destruction of the chametz. And although he is not yet destroying it, because he'll do that tomorrow on Erev Pesach, which this year is on Friday, the day before Erev Pesach, that's when we're going to burn the chametz. Nevertheless, it is appropriate to recite the blessing with the wording regarding the destruction of chametz rather than regarding the search for chametz, since immediately following the search, he will nullify any chametz of which he is unaware, and this nullification is the manner of destruction for chametz of which he is unaware of. That's when we say, after we finish the search, we say that we're mafka the chametz, we're mavatal the chametz, we make it as if it's nothing, as if it's hefker, and as if it's like nothing. Okay. One may not interrupt between reciting the blessing and beginning the search. It is, in fact, good practice to make no interruption until the entire search is completed, unless it relates to the search, something that has to do with the search. One may search a number of houses with a single blessing. In other words, one may not recite a new blessing for each house that he is searching. Let's go back to what we just learned. If before beginning the search, one made the blessing and didn't start beginning the search yet, and he spoke about things that are not pertaining to the search, he must repeat the bracha, repeat the blessing. Shabbat 432:5. Okay. It says it's best, good practice, to make no interruption until the entire search is complete. This is in order to ensure that one will pay proper attention to search all places that require bedika, searching. If one did interrupt after he had begun searching, then he doesn't have to repeat the blessing. The only time he has to repeat the blessing is if he made the blessing and didn't even start searching yet, then he has to make the blessing again, just like anything else, right? You make a blessing on food and you speak out immediately before even starting to eat the food, then you have to make a blessing up again. But if you started eating, then you're allowed to talk out. So it's best not to talk about anything unless it relates to the searching. These are permitted even initially once the bedika has begun. Search began, as they are not considered interruptions at all. They have to do with the searching, obviously. So that's part of the searching, and that's allowed. Now, we put out 10 small pieces, as everybody knows, in places where the one who is performing the search will find them, for they are concerned that he may not find anything, and his blessing will have been recited in vain. However, it's obvious that one who does not perform a proper search, but merely collects these pieces of bread, has not fulfilled his obligation of b'dikas chametz, and he has recited a blessing in vain. Okay. Now, the pieces of bread should be hard or wrapped so that they will not make any crumbs, and placed where there is no concern that they may be removed by a child or an animal. According to the Kabbalistic teachings of the Arizal, one should put out 10 pieces, as we mentioned. It is important to take great care to ensure that none of the pieces gets lost. Therefore, the person performing the search should keep track of the pieces. If any of the pieces remains unaccounted for after the search, speak to a rabbi that you trust. The best way, the way we do it is, the person who's putting out the pieces in the rooms should write down on a piece of paper exactly where he or she put them, so that at the end of the search, if you can't find it, you'll know where it is. Simple. Number 9. Oh, let me see if the Rav says anything. The Rav comments that even if he doesn't find any chametz at all, and he didn't put out the 10 pieces, it's not considered a bracha l'batala. It's not considered a blessing in vain. But minig Yisrael Torah, what all Jews do, the custom that Jews do, is considered like actual scriptural law, and therefore we do it the way Jews do it, not just creative on our own. So we put out the 10 pieces, but there's no real fear that if they don't find the chametz, then the bracha will be in vain, because the bracha is to search the chametz, and it's not a bracha to search and find the chametz, because if you don't find it, you still search for the chametz. Okay, that's how the Rav understands it. 9. The chametz that one leaves over for eating or selling to a non-Jew before the time that it becomes prohibited on the morning of the 14th of Nisan. We finished the search, and now you're left over for breakfast for the next morning, right? Must be placed before the search in a place that it will be safeguarded, well safeguarded, in order that it shouldn't get lost, or brought into an area that was already checked for chametz. The chametz that one finds during his search, which is required to be burnt the next day, he must place in a safeguarded place as well, and tie it securely so that none of it will get lost. He should then place it where he will see it the following day and not forget to burn it. Okay, 28. That was 9. We'll go to 10. 10. Following the search, one should immediately nullify the chametz, and it's in your siddur, in your prayer book. The fundamental nullification is in one's heart. That is to resolve in his heart that all the chametz that is in his possession, that is the chametz of which he is not aware of. At this point, he is not nullifying the chametz of which he is aware of, since he wishes to continue eating it. He's going to eat it tomorrow morning for breakfast, right? Until the end of time for eating chametz on the following morning, Erev Pesach, and fulfill the mitzvah of properly disposing of the remaining chametz by burning it. So he's not talking about that, but he's being mevatel, he's nullifying the chametz that he has not found. It's as if it does not exist. That's what he says in the wording. It says it in the siddur, and is of no importance, and is like dust, and like something that serves no purpose. The sages instituted that one must also express these matters verbally and mean it with his full heart. So yes, the main thing is with the heart, but also the Chazal require saying it with your mouth. And we say the following text: Kol chamira, all sourdough. Kol chamira, all sourdough. One who does not understand its meaning is to say it in the language that he does understand. Kitzer presents the words of the nullification text in the Yiddish vernacular, and the translation is all sourdough and all chametz that is found in my possession, which I have not seen and not destroyed, shall be nullified and considered like the dust of the earth. Okay. 10. Number 11. And there's the introduction to number 11. On the morning of the 14th of Nisan, which is Erev Pesach, and again this year when Erev Pesach falls out on a Shabbos, so now we're talking about Friday morning, which is the 13th of Nisan, one is required to destroy all remaining chametz in his possession before the beginning of the 6th seasonal hour of the day. Although there are a number of ways of accomplishing this, the custom is to burn the chametz. If before the 6th hour of the day, while chametz may still be owned, one properly disposed of the chametz, or gave it or sold it to an non-Jew, he did not burn it. If before the 6th hour of Erev Pesach, while chametz may still be owned, one properly disposed of the chametz or gave it or sold it to a non-Jew, see below 114. He need not burn it. Nevertheless, according to Rabbi Feinstein, Nigus Moshe Arachaim 3:57, one may not dispose of the chametz by putting it in a garbage can that is on his property if the garbage will not be collected until after the time that it is prohibited to own chametz. If he owns a garbage can, this should not be done even if the garbage can is taken out to the street. He may, however, dispose of the chametz in a garbage bin that is not his, such as one belongs to the municipality and is not on his property. Regardless, one should not give away or throw away all of the chametz, and should leave over at least the kazayas of chametz and burn it in order to fulfill the mitzvah of destroying the chametz in the most appropriate manner before the end of time for owning chametz. Okay. Although, now we're going to the Kitzer in 11. That was an introduction. Although one has already nullified the chametz at night, following the search, nevertheless, on the day of the 14th of Nisan as well, after he has burnt the remaining chametz, he is to nullify the chametz again, and include all of the chametz, even the chametz that he was aware of, and say the following. All sourdough and all chametz that is in my possession, whether I have seen it or not seen it, whether I have destroyed it or did not destroy it, shall be nullified and considered like the dust of the earth. This is in order to include any chametz that he may have purchased following his first nullification, or in case chametz was inadvertently left over from the chametz that remained from the previous night. We do not rely on the nullification of the daytime alone, since he may forget to nullify the chametz before the proper time. Since burning the chametz is a preferred means of its destruction, this nullification should be done only after the burning of the chametz. In order to fulfill the mitzvah of burning the chametz, while the chametz is still in his possession. Both the burning and nullification must be performed by the end of the fifth seasonal hour of the day, which we'll see about in chapter 113. 12. That wasn't 12, that was 11. Okay. We'll go to 12. Kitzer will now discuss a case where there is a requirement to perform bedikas chametz, searching for the chametz, even when there is a considerable amount of time remaining until Pesach. Regarding a room that requires bedikas chametz, there is reason to believe that chametz was brought there, that one wishes to convert to a storeroom, that is, he wishes to store in it produce or wood or other items, that as a result of this new usage, he will be unable to perform bedikas chametz there when the night of the 14th of Nisan arrives. The halacha is as follows. He must first perform a search for chametz there at nighttime before storing the produce or other items in it, in the same manner that bedikas chametz is performed on the night of the 14th of Nisan, and this search must be performed even if there is still a long time before Pesach. In fact, even if it is immediately following the previous Pesach. After the fact, if he did not inspect it before converting it into a storeroom, the halacha depends upon the following. If he intends to clear it out before the time of bedikas chametz arrives, he need not expend the effort to clear it out now and search it. But if he intends to clear it out during the days of Pesach, he must clear it out now and search it for chametz, even if it involves considerable effort and expense. Okay. Number 13, if he converted the room into a storeroom with the intent of not clearing it out until after Pesach, its halacha is then dependent on the amount of time remaining until Pesach as follows. If it is more than 30 days before Pesach, he does not need to search it. Nonetheless, if there is chametz that he is aware of, he should first dispose of it, of course. And he may rely on the effectiveness of nullification, that he will nullify all the chametz in his time on the 14th of Nisan. But if it's within 30 days of Pesach, the obligation for searching has already devolved upon him, since we require into and expound upon the halachas of Pesach 30 days before Pesach. That's the reason why. And he must search it, and even after the fact, if he didn't search it, if he forgot and did not search it, he must empty out the storeroom and search it at night as soon as he remembers. Okay, number 14. If one makes a stockpile in a pit of wheat kernels that were not chametz, and afterward, as a result of the dampness of the pit, the wheat kernels that were on the floor and walls of the pit become chametz, they got wet, the halacha is that even if he stored them within 30 days of Pesach, he need not empty the pit on the night of the 14th and search it. Rather, nullification is good enough for that, since at the time when he stored it permissibly. If there were wheat kernels of chametz among them when he stored them, the halacha in this case is dependent upon various factors, and one should ask his halachic authority. Number 15. One should not throw kernels of grain to chickens in a damp place where they can become chametz within 30 days of Pesach, lest he forget to destroy it. Okay, that was what? 15. Number 16. One who departs on a journey before Pesach is to appoint an agent, a shliach, before he goes. For what? To search for and nullify his chametz. He is to instruct him explicitly that he is appointing him as an agent to perform the search, as well as for the nullification. The agent is to say in the declaration of nullification the chametz of so and so, etc., etc. Nevertheless, he, the owner too, wherever he is, on the morning of Erev Pesach, should nullify the chametz that is in his possession also. Number 17, and this will be the final one for tonight. One who found chametz in his house, God forbid, on Chol Hamoed, the intermediate days of Pesach, must remove it from the house and burn it. If there is a kezayis of chametz, although one may not own even a smaller amount of chametz on Pesach, a kezayis, which is dealt with more stringently, since according to some authorities, the biblical prohibition of bal yirah bal yimatzeh, it shouldn't be seen and it shouldn't be found, do not apply unless one owns a kezayis that he did not nullify. Some authorities rule that one who performed a proper bedika and nullified his chametz for Pesach does not recite a blessing when burning the chametz that was found on Pesach. Therefore, according to Mishnah Berurah, no blessing should be recited. Nowadays, it is common practice to include all of the chametz that one owns in the sale of chametz to the non-Jew. So, one who did this must therefore consult a halachic authority what should be done. Okay, so back to this case over here. What happened? One who found chametz in his house on Chol Hamoed during the intermediate days of Pesach must remove it from the house and burn it. If there is a kezayis of chametz, he first recites the blessing of bir chametz concerning the destruction of chametz. But on less than a kezayis, one does not recite a blessing. Okay, kezayis is 0.6 to 1.1 fluid ounces. Okay, however, if he found it on Yontif, on the holiday, or on Shabbos Chol Hamoed, and so too if he found it on Erev Pesach that fell on Shabbos like this year, when it is prohibited to move it, because it's muksa, he should invert a utensil over it, cover it with a bowl or whatever, until the night Yontif ends, or Saturday night after Shabbos, and burn it then. If he found it on the final 2 days of Pesach, in which case, on Matzah Yontif, the Pesach holiday will already have passed, he does not recite a blessing upon destroying the chametz, rather he burns it on Matzah Yontif without a blessing, even if there is a kezayis of chametz. Yeah, we'll stop right now. Have a good vach and enjoyable cleaning for Pesach.